Hello everybody. So I'm making a short video here that's going to help you guys use the Library Learning Commons. So to start off with, we can see that the website right here is georgebrown.ca/library learning commons with dashes in between. But we can actually just use /LLC, which is a little bit easier to remember, georgebrown.ca/LLC, and it'll bring us right here to the same website. So the Library Learning Commons is going to be a great resource for your research. The library has literally hundreds of thousands of sources available to you for free. It has academic journals, it has scientific journals, it also has magazines and trade journals, so all kinds of sources that you can use for your research, not just in this class and for this assignment, but for all of your future assignments. And we're going to look at how to use those. Before we get started, a few things to note here. You can see on the right-hand margin right here, it says click to chat. And the library has a chat function where you can talk to a librarian or a librarian assistant. So if you're getting stuck with the system, if you find it's a little more complicated than you thought, or you're not finding the resources that you need, a librarian can help you, and that's a great resource. Another thing to notice here is that even though the library is closed for COVID, if you have, say, a broken laptop and you need to borrow some equipment from the college, they're still available for that service. So if you desperately need a laptop or you desperately need a tablet or something like that to complete your schoolwork, you're able to borrow that from the library. They're still open for that service, and you can click on that link right there. So if we scroll down a little bit, you can see that there's something here that says databases, and you can click on databases, and it'll bring you to an alphabetic list that includes all of the different journals that the library subscribes to. So the way it works is that the library, the college takes part of your tuition and it subscribes to thousands of different journals. So academic journals, as I said, trade journals, magazines, even things that you normally would have to pay for, but that are quite accessible, things like the Globe and Mail, the New York Times. If you were to access those on Google, they top you out at, say, 3 articles. You read 3 articles, and then after that, they put up a paywall. Well, if you access them through the library database, you can access as many New York Times articles or as many Globe and Mail articles as you want to, and you won't come up to a paywall where you have to pay any money. So this is the list of databases, but the easiest way for us to access it, going back to the front page here, georgebrown.ca/LLC, is to use the search bar right here. So let's pick a topic. So one of the example topics that I used for this week was about climate change and government regulation. So let's try typing that out. Climate change and government regulation. Now you'll have to sign in. Now the sign in can be a little bit weird. It's going to be your student ID, or in this case, my employee ID. And then it's going to have to say at georgebrown.ca, which is a little bit strange, but that's what you'll have to do. You can use the same password that you use anytime you log in to George Brown. And it's going to take us to something that looks like this. Now, you can see here that we've already got 23,000 hits. But one of the things we should notice here is that some of these hits are maybe going to be a little bit less effective. For example, we have something about metabolic regulation instead of government regulation. So that's about health and not about government approaches to climate change. So unlike Google, the search algorithm is a little bit more basic. If we were to do this search on Google, Google has an algorithm where it will take a look at your search terms and it will automatically come up with things like synonyms or other words that mean the same thing, and it will cut out words like and. And unfortunately, the library search algorithm doesn't do that. It's a little bit more basic. So here's what we want to do. We want to put our search terms on different lines, different fields in the search bar. So we've got climate change on one, and then we've got regulation on another one. So one thing we want to do is we want to be able to supply our own synonyms or terms that mean the same thing. And we can specify these by using a word like or, climate change or global warming. And you can see it even suggests the term there. Now, just to keep it together, just to keep these terms together, for example, before we did government regulation and it took out the word regulation, but it didn't include the word government. So if we want these terms to appear together, we want to put quotation marks around the individual search terms. Climate change or global warming, like that. We can also have government regulation. Now, there's other terms related to government regulation, and maybe we're not just talking about regulation generally. Maybe we want to think about the specific laws that need to be passed. So let's say or law. Now this is one term, so we don't actually have to put quotation marks around it because it's a one-word term, but it's just a good habit to get into anyway, so we might as well do it. So the way this works now is that when we search anything that has climate change and government regulation, if it has both of those terms, it will come up. But if we have global warming and government regulation, that will also come up. If we have climate change and law, that will come up. And if we have global warming and government regulation, that will come up. So it gives us a little bit more of a flexible search, similar to what we would get from Google. The difference is we're just having to do a little bit of that work by ourselves. So let's go ahead and click the search button and see what comes up. It'll take a few seconds. Okay. So here we have findings from McGill Faculty of Law in the area of climate change reported, realizing the right to be cold, framing processes and outcomes associated with the Inuit petition. Okay, so that might be something that's helpful for us, but we still have quite a few sources here. You can see we've got 55,000. Now, there's no way that we can actually comb through and go through all of these. So we can narrow it down, and if we look at this bar on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see some helpful ways that we can refine the search. Now, the first thing we're going to notice is that we're getting results that go all the way back to 1977, and that is a little long. We generally want to have the most recent sources. Generally, I would say the last 5 years is a good goal, but it also depends a little bit on your topic. When it comes to climate change, there tends to be quite a bit of information published on it. We want the most recent, the most up-to-date, the most scientifically accurate by current standards. So I'm going to try just in the last 2 years and say 2018 to 2020. Okay, so it's narrowed it down quite a bit, but we still have 10,000. So let's take a look back over here on the left-hand side, and there's a few other things that we can do. Now, if we click full text, that's going to ensure that we're only getting results that the library database has full access to. There are a lot of results on here. For the most part, the library is only showing results for things that we are able to access. Sometimes it might have a link that is basically a dead link where you're not really going to be able to read it. So click on full text. It narrowed it down a little bit, but as you can see, we still have most of them. You should do this anyways, because it means that you're not going to get stuck, finding a perfect article that you think is going to be great for you, and then you have the disappointing experience of realizing that you can't actually read it. So, we've clicked full text. If you take a look down here, we've got something that says filter by source type. Now, 4,000 of these 10,000 hits are news articles. 3,000 are from academic journals. 1,600 are from magazines. We've got about 350 books. For the most part, these are ebooks that you're going to be able to access right online. And we've got 130 trade publications. Now, we should talk a little bit about what these things actually mean. Trade publications, those are publications that are published by a specific industry or a specific field, and they're for people who are in that field. So a lot of the time they do tend to be more technical. So if we wanted to know about climate change and how to outfit our roof with solar panels, trade publications would be a really great place to look. You can take a look there, but it might be a little bit limiting. News sources are probably going to be less helpful for you, right? We might find some persuasive articles, some op-eds, we'll get news pieces about what's going on, but for the kind of research we're wanting to do, the news is probably not going to be all that helpful for us. That leaves us 3 things that we can look into. Academic journals, they'll tend to be very, very high level. They'll be more complex, they'll have more advanced information. They also tend to be longer, so they'll be about 20 pages. A magazine article will be somewhere in the middle. Whoops, I accidentally clicked it. And so they can be helpful as well, and sometimes magazine articles can be a good starting